Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens, and this is Carly Stevens Books for all things writing, publishing, and indie author life. And I am here today with Jackie North. I'm really excited to get into our topic for today. So, welcome to the channel.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
All right, let me tell you a little bit about Jackie, and then we'll dive into our topic. So, Jackie North has been writing stories since grade school, and her dream was to someday leave her corporate day job behind and travel the world. She also wanted to put her English degree to good use and write romance novels, because for years she's had never-ending movie of made-up love stories in her head that simply wouldn't leave her alone. I love that. Luckily, she discovered MM romance and decided that men falling in love with other men was exactly what she wanted to write about. In this dazzling new world, she turned her grocery store romance ideas around and is now putting them to paper as fast as her fingers can type. She creates characters who are a bit flawed and broken, who find themselves on the edge of society, and maybe a few who are a little bit lost, but who all deserve a happily ever after, and she makes sure they get it. She likes long walks on the beach, the smell of lavender and rainstorms, and enjoys sleeping in on snowy mornings. Sounds like we have a lot in common. She's
Yes.
especially fond of pizza and beer, and when time allows, long road trips with soda fountain drinks and rock and roll music. In her heart, there is peace to be found everywhere, but since in the real world this isn't always true, Jackie writes for love. What a lovely um bio. See, this is why we get along.
Right? Yes, I think so. There are all these connects, and it's not just in one place. Definitely.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you first got into writing? You hinted at it in just your biography there, but what first started this whole thing?
Well, I'm going to say it went back to fourth grade. I don't know how old I was. I think it's 11 or something like that. Anyway, the teacher hands out these laminated covers of magazines or images for magazines. Mine was the back of a Writer's Digest, and I wrote this story, and I just sort of went to town. I was in a good mood. I got an A plus, a smiley face, and I like your ending. So I don't know if you as a teacher realize this, but these sometimes these comments come in and they imprint on your brain. And I thought, I am a writer just from this. And so I just enjoyed those assignments more than the other ones, of course, because I was already good at it. Someone told me. So that's ever since the fourth grade, I am a writer. So I've always been writing. In the old days, it was with pen and paper, pencil and paper. Went to a electric typewriter and then an old fashioned word processor, and here we are, laptops and iPads and all that stuff. But the writing has been a central focus of my life.
I love that. So what I wanted to focus on today, what we're really talking about is writing MM romance, so gay romance with men. Why did you choose that genre? I'm sure you get this question all the time, but
I did.
what drew you to that genre in the first place, as opposed to the more typical straight romance?
Well, I think in the beginning, that's kind of what I would think of as a regular romance. But I had gone to a Star Trek convention, and it's standing room only. It's Leonard Nimoy. Nobody else can get in the room because it's him. This is back in 1993. And somebody said, have you read Slash? Do you know what Slash is? And have you read it? And I'm like, I cannot understand why the entire room is groaning in despair and distaste and anguish. And I'm like, this is really upsetting a lot of people. I got to find out what it is because, Star Trek back in the day, more men than women would go to these conventions. Now it's not that way. So I went and I asked around and I found this table and they were selling what they called Slash, which is how you describe a romance between Kirk and Spock. You say K/S. So if you said it was a slash story, it was a story between two characters on TV at the time and in movies that were madly in love. And I thought, wait a minute. When I was in the seventh grade, I wrote a sort of what would now be termed fan fiction, where I won a contest where I got to have lunch with one of the characters on the Starship Enterprise. And why wouldn't you in the seventh grade?
Right.
So my lunch was with Chekhov because he was the cutest. And I had drawn this picture, and at the other end of the table, it's just a sketch of where everyone was sitting. Kirk and Spock are sitting very, very close together because even I knew in the seventh grade they were connected. Now, in seventh grade, I didn't know they were in love, but today I know that they are. And I know this sounds strange if you've never heard of it before, but I while I did think I was alone, I am not alone. There were hundreds of thousands of women writing this, and they write it to this day. Um, like, for example, Starsky and Hutch. Everybody knows that they were really connected on the television show. And so you would write SH, S/H would be the designation for that. Now, the kids today, they would do blend names, like Spirk would be Kirk and
Mm.
Spock.
Right,
And
Hermione. So
right,
what would sorry to
yeah,
just to clarify. So these slash fiction, is it basically just ships of characters, or was it
yes,
always like MM?
it was back in the day when it started, 1972. It was what we call Gen. They weren't in love. There wasn't a romance. It was just their adventures together. And then someone took the next step, and oh my gosh, they're really in love with each other. And so today we call them ships, but back in the day we called them slash couples, or are they slashed? Can you slash them? So ships today, right? So things keep changing, but it's still the same. They're still writing about Kirk and Spock being madly in love. So I thought, I'll read one. And I read one. It was called Vagabonds. I still have a copy. It changed my world. It was like they used words I'd never heard of and ideas, and it was transmogrifying. And I thought, well, I'm going to write this. So I wrote some Kirk and Spock, and I wrote some professionals and Starsky and Hutch. Tried to write Blake Seven, that didn't work, but I enjoyed writing about men, falling in love with men. And here's the reason why. Um, well, that's kind of, I think, your next question. The reason why, what makes it different, is that they're a level playing field, right? So if you have a Cinderella story, the woman has to be Cinderella. There was a Harlequin romance, and they made the man the Cinderella. And I thought, wait a minute, that doesn't work because the way our society is set up,
Hmm.
it's an unequal dynamic in different ways. But if you have two men, you can make either one of them the Cinderella, and it works. You can have a rescue story, you can have anything you want, and make either one of the characters do what you need them to do in the story. So it's kind of liberating in that way. Does that make
Okay, you
sense?
felt like you didn't need to bow to the kind of implied power dynamics of certain tropes and that kind of thing.
Yes, that is exactly how it is. The world just sort of opens up when you have a level playing field between the characters.
Interesting. So have you found that there are any writing challenges or differences when you're writing an MM romance versus a straight romance? I'm going to assume you've probably tried your hand at
I
one of
did.
those.
And I found it was less exciting. The challenge is understanding how men's minds work. And you think, oh,
Mm.
how can a woman do that? Well, men have been writing female characters since the beginning of time.
With a
Uh,
variation of varying degrees of success.
right, varying degrees of success. I think that there's no reason why you can't write about two men falling in love. You can write about vampires falling in love. You empathize with the character. You try and figure out how their mind works and what would make them behave that the way that they do it. People are people, right? Men are people too, and they fall in love maybe differently than women do. I don't know. I'm not a man, but I can imagine because I've seen, you watch people and you think, oh, why are they behaving that way? So it's just interpretation. Any author would do that for any character that they are writing about.
Right. Do you have a lot of men who read your work before it comes out, different beta readers or ARC readers?
I like to say that I have 10 readers that love me fanatically, and they are all men. They are all gay
Oh,
men.
good.
And so some
Very
of what
helpful. I imagine
very helpful,
as a perspective to give you feedback.
right? And they there are different types of gay romances, and some appeal to a different type of reader. My readers, these gay men, they write me and they say, this is exactly how I see romance
Hmm.
for me, right? It's not realistic, right? No romance is. That's what makes it romance. There's always a happily ever after. And it resonates with them because I've captured something about this. Now there's other guys, they're living on Fire Island and having, lots of adventures that I would not be writing about. And my work does not appeal to them, but there are
Hmm.
authors who do. So there's something for everybody. That's what I would say. So I have a certain audience that I just lean into that because that's what I enjoy and they enjoy it as well.
Right. I mean, it can't just be like MM romance is one monolithic thing, just like MF romance is not one monolithic thing. You have, the sweet Hallmark, and then you have the incredibly steamy, you have the small town, you have the paranormal. So
Right.
do you find that there is the level of like sharp division between genres in MM romance, or are people more about the um I, how do I say, like a particular kind of experience? Like you were saying, this is the way I've kind of envisioned myself falling in love. Like, would sports romance and small town and these different things
Right. I think
make as
there
much of a
is,
difference?
no, I don't think that it does. Just as in het romance, you go, oh, I like small town. So you're only going to read it if it says small town. You're not
Mhm.
going to really, but then you might get an author who writes small town and also writes a hockey series. Oh, I'll try them because I love this. It's just the same. People say, how do you write LGBTQ characters? They're people. I'm just writing people who happen to be gay or lesbian or transgender or, bi or whatever. It's just people. It's
Mhm.
not like they're different in any way that other people aren't different from each other. So I don't have a problem with that part, but I'm like, I couldn't write a hockey romance to save my life, so I'm not going to do that. So that's where the division comes is I'm not going to write sports. But I have people asking me for a wedding and I'm like, oh, you know, readers want what they want and authors try to give them as best they can. I would never write, where there's more than two people involved in the conversation and the aftermath of that because I just couldn't keep track,
It
right? And
would
so,
it would get very complicated. You'd have to have quite the concept to make it work. Yeah.
but other people
But some
can.
people do, yeah.
Some people do, and there's no right or wrong. Is what does the reader want, and are you the person to give it to them?
Hmm. Yeah,
Right?
I was wondering about that question. I know it wasn't one that was expected, but I was looking through your significant catalog of books, and I noticed that you had about three different subgenres in there. There was some historical, there was some Western, there was some, it was a few different genres. So I was wondering if people were just your Western readers or just your historical readers, or if it was just, all right, I like the Jackie North experience, I'm going to you just kind of pick and choose a bunch of them. So that's where that question came from.
Think it's all three. I get readers who've been with me since the beginning, and some who've joined when it turned contemporary. Not everybody likes historical. It's also a small subgenre in the het romance industry as well, um, bigger than MM for sure. But I think then people just come in at different times, and they have different reasons, and hopefully they'll stick around. Like everything and read everything. But you know, I don't do hockey because I'm not into sports ball. I probably wouldn't write a cop drama, although that sounds fun. It's just what you like to write as an author, and then you get the readers who like what you do.
That I've as a multi-genre author myself, I love talking to people who don't. I mean, I love talking to pretty much any author, but I love it when people don't only niche down. I just find that I relate more when there's a
Yeah.
bit more
Well,
variety. So
your
you
interest
mentioned,
as an author changes, and the taste of the genre changes too.
mm,
For example, my first series was time travel romance called Time Swept, I guess, is now the term for that because they're not causing the time travel. It just happens to them. And not popular in MM romance, but you get your 10 readers who are fiercely in love with that. And then so you think, okay, I like this part of what I did.
mm,
And then you just morph, you change as an author too. So it's all a bit of everything, I think.
mm. So you mentioned that you have some die-hard readers. You mentioned some of the men who just are all in with your books. Do you find that there are a lot of women who write and read this genre as well? I mean, you're a woman, you're writing MM romance. So I guess that's my first question. Do you find that there are a lot of women who write and read this genre?
So this topic comes up a lot for the MM romance community. Uh, Overall, in romance, 85% of people who write it and read it are women, period. Doesn't matter what kind of romance you're writing. So if it's gay romance, it's the same. So then you get gay men coming in thinking that the genre is one thing, it says gay romance, and it's another. So my definition, and other people too, you may get some differing opinions. Gay romance is written by gay men for gay men. Their audience is people who want a realistic experience where you have to deal with politics and, insurance and equal rights and, all this, real world stuff. But if you have romance, it's complete fantasy. So let's say 1 in 10 men are gay. So how is it that my valley and my ranch, everybody's gay? That's a complete fantasy. It's not realistic. It's romance. So you get these gay men, and most of them are like, oh, they get it. Okay, I'll write my stuff that I need to write. And the romance community will read gay romance. It's kind of it's like splitting hairs, but it helps for people who are just coming in to kind of understand where the audience is. So I'm writing something, and I'm not a man, but 85% of my readers are women.
Hmm.
And 85% of the women in the community are women, right? Writing, sorry, 85% of the writers in the community are women, straight across the board for any romance. So that's how I define it. I think that answers your question that you were asking me. That it's
Yeah.
just you just are a person, and this is the percentage. It may change over time, but that's the statistic, and it is just just a guideline to describe what's happening so that people can understand when they come in and go, wait a minute, you're not men. How can you write gay romance? Well, it's a fantasy. All of it's a fantasy. All my
Right.
cowboys are gay.
And I like what you said. It's like, yes, you have to keep certain things in mind. You do have, gay men who read and give you feedback and all of that. But I mean, that's just like with any character who is not exactly like us, which is going to be, let's assume, the majority of our characters, if we take into account
Right.
every single one that we come up with. Um, more of that character creation really has to do with empathy, with complexity, with treating people as people with complex,
Yeah. And
is and
everybody's got
emotions and
issues.
similar desires to everyone else.
Right. Everybody's got issues. What are your issues? Where you come from, how you were raised, your orientation. Um, it's all different, but deep inside, do we like chocolate or not? We can all agree on something. Anyway, so that's the answer that I've been given. We've had this discussion in the community over and over again. So
Mm.
when you gave me that question to think about, I had an answer because it's the
I,
same.
I, I'm not surprised. It's
Because it's confusing if wait a minute, you can't write, well, I can write vampires and I can write somebody going into space and I can write being an alien or, you know, no, you can't. Yes, I can.
it's it's amazing. Um, yeah, so do you find that there are any marketing hurdles to being a woman who writes romance? Like, do readers assume that you're going to be a man, or, is there any kind of disconnect there, or hurdle
There,
to jump over?
there can be, there's a two-part answer to that question. I am female, and my pen name is female. And obviously, it's a pen name. That's not my real name. People understand that kind of going in. But if I say my name is Tom Smith, and I am a woman pretending to be a man writing gay fiction, then I'm kind of lying to my readers. So maybe you have initials, TD Sweeney, for example. But everybody knows that you're female and you're not lying about it, but that's not what your focus is when you talk about it. You see, so there's a difference. You don't want to mislead your readers, like pretending that you have, oh, I don't know, cancer and that your leg is broken and that you need all this money and that you're a man, when you're actually two people writing in, Montana. You don't want to mislead them. So there's that part of it. The second part of it is when creating ads. You've got your covers with these sexy men on them. For some reason, if you're writing het romance, the advertisers that you might use don't care. But if it's LGBTQ or gay romance or and you've got a naked man or two naked men, all of a sudden it's an issue.
Hmm.
And that
With
has
this,
to,
with the same level of
yes,
whatever's being shown.
the same level of exposed skin or positions or whatever on that cover. And so people get their ad campaigns shut down, or people get,
Hmm.
kicked off a social media platform. And we're seeing a pattern. We in the community and the gay community, you see a pattern where there's a lot of prejudice against it. I don't know why. It's the same amount of skin, or it's hardly any at all. It's, we removed this because you violated this term.
Hmm.
Okay, why? When you have a het romance that has, I don't know, going on. So that's one of the challenges there. So I tend to have my characters on covers mostly clothed, and it's just one guy. You know,
Hmm.
I play it safe. That way other people take more risks, and maybe the rewards are there for them. But then you risk, getting banned from a platform because, his arms are showing. I don't know. So that is one of the struggles.
Do you find that there is a particular platform that has um, worked, for ads and things like that more than another, or they've been less prone to,
Well, I don't want to,
suppress these things?
I couldn't tell you that. I just
No.
know that there are certain platforms that I will not give money to because it's arbitrary. It seems more arbitrary to me. I will say I use Amazon, but then I'm playing it safe. I only do Amazon ads so far. Maybe I'll use a newsletter, but while their reach is wide, their market for LGBTQ is small because that's not their readership. So you have to find one that works in that. And so that is the challenge. You're like, okay, which one is actually showing my ad to the people I need to show it to?
Right, and that's true for almost every
Right. Yeah.
every genre. I've had all kinds of trouble. And I don't have shirtless men on my covers, so you
Right. And
know,
so there's widely like cozy romance. You could put a cozy romance anywhere, ad anywhere, and it will sell millions, right? Because it's a very popular, very wide mouthed genre. Everybody could go into it knowing what they're getting. So, you have to study the market and you have to understand where your market is and who's going to show your ad to those people.
mm. So what advice would you give to other writers who are considering trying out this genre, or they're already like all in and they want to make this their niche as well?
So I would say the same thing to an MM author who's just starting out or any author. Read in your genre, find out what reader expectations are, and be consistent. And everything else can change what the market is, how to reach your readers, what the cover should look like. But if you are consistent in your cadence, so if you're going to write 4 books a year, always write for 4 books a year, under promise and over deliver, and keep that cadence up. And then read everything. Find out what they want. Do they want people hanging curtains in their romances? Well, welcome to my book, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to hang curtains and do chores and go out in the fresh air and look at the stars come out as the sun goes down over and over again. And that's what people who read my books tend to like. And then there are other racier books. So if that's what you're going to do, find out what kind of racy and what the market will bear. So research is key, and that means reading a lot.
Hmm. But keep not only, I would assume, keep not only the release schedule fairly consistent, but also the, the type of book or the type of experience. Would you say that the experience should be the same, similar?
Well, that's a good question. At certain points, you will be told as an author, stay in your lane. If you're going to write cozy mysteries, that's all you could ever write. Now, that used to be true when there's only one spot in a bookshelf in a bookstore for you.
Hmm.
Cozy mysteries always goes over to the right, next to the coffee shop. But now, in the days of Amazon, you could have multiple categories or genres you fit under. So your cozy mystery with hurt, comfort, and rescue. So you can be kind of more over the board. You can be cozy mystery with a firefighter. So it's not just a romance; it's a cozy mystery romance. You can straddle genres easier. But when you start out, stay in your lane. Pick a lane, stay in there, and then diversify, depending on what the market is and what your interests are.
That's really helpful advice. So how can people find you and your work online?
So if you enter JackieNorth.com, then you will find my website. If you search on Amazon, Jackie North, you will find all my cowboys and my time travel and my historicals. So start with www.JackieNorth.com, and you can find all the information about how to reach me or email me or talk to me. That's the one thing about being an indie author. There's more connection with the reader. In trad pub days, um, there was no way you could write a letter to Anne Rice and have her get it, right? Which was my dream. Um, but today you could reach out and email an author and say, hey, I love your book, or hey, why don't you write that wedding scene you've been promising? Where is that now? Which I love because it's like, oh my gosh, I got to write a wedding scene.
Gotta send it out to the subscribers.
That's right. But readers are amazing because you can engage with them. You get to talk to them about things.
Hmm.
You know, there's a real connection there. You know, especially my 10 readers. Oh my gosh, I love them all.
Yeah, so your friendly neighborhood PSA, reach out to the indie authors that you like. We're hanging on by a thread. No, I mean we love what we do,
We
but it's
do, and
always
it's
so
so
encouraging when we hear
when you
from
get that
somebody who
letter,
loves the book.
they're like, "Oh, I really loved your book. You know, are you going to write a sequel?" And you're like, "Yeah, maybe. You want it?" You know, it gives you a thrill to be asked. I think that's
A
so
Absolutely.
so fun.
Well, thank you so much for spending the afternoon with me, Jackie, talking about romance and really letting me pick your brain. So like this video if you like it, watchers out there. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification button, and I'll be back next week. Till then, bye.
Bye.